So that's very interesting story.
Yeah.
Wow. It does make sense that if you're seen as an enemy of the government, they're not going to let you in. On the other hand, that must be very disappointing.
Well, you know, I thought about demanding my pennies back for all those trees. But I probably wouldn't get too far. You know, there's we call ourselves a select club of Jews who are not allowed in Israel, right?
Sure,
because
it's a
Israel,
select club.
but I think it's a measure of how much the Israeli government fears the nonviolent movement. Because they know the power of that kind of movement and the power of that movement to shift world public opinion, to mobilize people across the whole spectrum of Palestinian society. And I think that's one of the reasons in the last few months they've really cracked down in Bilin and in Nilin and the villages along the wall and in Ramallah, and done mass arrests of nonviolent activists because they really fear this kind of opposition can be effective in a way that the violent resistance, you know, they're comfortable handling that. You know, they have the 4th largest army in the world, right? You know. And
supported by Uncle Sam to a very large degree.
Mm-hmm. But nonviolent civil resistance, I think, is actually a much larger threat to the maintenance of the power of the occupation.
Do you think that's because of the second story about the Jewish people?
You know, I mean, the Palestinians aren't really doing it to tell a story to the Jewish people. The Palestinians are doing it so that
you're right. I was thinking
people,
of of those Israelis who are involved in the nonviolent movement.
Yeah. I think the threat is more that large-scale Palestinian resistance, like there was during the first Intifada, really undermined some of the pillars of Israeli control. And
that makes sense.
You know, and it also starts to shatter that story of, oh, they're all terrorists and they're all evil, you know, and starts to humanize the Palestinians. And I think that volunteers with groups like the ISM and with the International Women's Peace Service and the Christian peacemaker teams and many of the groups who've been in there, people go back and start telling their stories again, and more of the truth gets out, and more of those personal stories get out. Again, that shatters that myth that the Palestinians are all evil and the Muslims are all fanatical terrorists, and you start to see people as people, and then the whole picture shifts. And once that happens, you can't countenance the level of repression and injustice that's going on there.
Remind us again what ISM stands
The
for.
International Solidarity Movement.
Okay, good. Because you said that way back
Yeah.
when. Yeah, great. So is there anything else you want to tell us about this?
Oh, I could tell you many stories about this, but I would encourage people, you know, to really find out for yourself. You can go to palsolidarity.org, which is the ISM website. You can read the Israeli press. You can go to Gush Shalom, and they have very good press releases. You can get on their mailing list and get the emails. You know, the Israeli press and the Israeli opposition press often has really good analyses of what's going on that we never see over here in the United States. And to really read and to educate yourself. You can read Jimmy Carter's book, Peace Not Apartheid, which is a pretty even-handed discussion of the more recent history and the vision of what could happen. And he was vilified for,
That's
you know,
right.
right? In fact, the Israelis wouldn't let him into the country at one point.
Right.
So. And then to do something, to take action, because if we don't speak out and we don't take action against a huge injustice, then, you know, we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing here on earth, I think, as human beings. And that kind of injustice has a tendency to fester and to create other kinds of injustices around it that put us all in danger. And, you know, the whole situation there, it's like a festering sore in the psyche of the world that continues to spawn other kinds of violence and other kinds of repression and oppression all around it.
Well, I could ask one more question. Why do you think that our government is supporting the repression of the Palestinians in Israel?
I think that that there are very powerful lobbies in this country that are very vocal and very virulent, that have made politicians afraid to take any kind of a stand for real justice. And I think the only way to counter that is by developing other voices that are not virulent but loud, right? You know, and also powerful. And to be clear, you know, groups like AIPAC, the big pro-Zionist lobby, do not really speak for all Jews or all American Jews. They have their own special interests. There are other groups now like Jewish Voice for Peace, like Tikkun, like J Street, you know, that are proposing really different takes on the whole situation. And it's time that those voices got listened to more.
I think that's a really good place to stop.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Star.